Hi, and welcome to Chapter 10 of the Miraculous fanfiction, A Glitch in the System. This is all written and narrated by Milady Samantha. Thank you so much, I hope you enjoy.
Ladybug arrived at the scene and prepared for battle. She remembered Kat's grab of her hands and how comforting that felt. She couldn't help but smile as she dodged the attacks. The Akuma was extremely colorful. She had neon pink hair, bright blue eyes, and a neon green dress that ran right down to her knees. Her hair ran all the way down to her thighs and was flowing wildly in the strong wind. And she also had a very piercing stare that if you were to look at her for too long, you wouldn't be able to look away as you'd be blinded by her colorfulness and absorbed into her attention-seeking trap. However, Ladybug and Cat Noir could resist this to an extent, which was a huge plus for them. The Akuma screamed out angrily, "Why is no one looking at me?" Ladybug was puzzled when her dazed partner landed beside her on the battlefield. "So, m'lady, who's our new friend?" Cat joked. Ladybug smiled at him. "I'm not sure yet, Cat," she replied. The Akuma looked astounded. "You want to be friends?" it questioned loudly. "Also, my name is Attention Justifier," she screeched. Cat couldn't contain his laughter. "Attention Justifier? Seriously?" Cat almost fell to the floor with laughter while Ladybug held her laughs by instead rolling her eyes at her partner. She secretly adored his humor, but would never allow herself to admit it. Well, of course she was under Truth, her ex-boyfriend's control. That was the time when she admitted it. She pondered at the memory and was so embarrassed that she'd admitted that, and in front of Cat. Although, remembering how happy he looked afterwards made her feel better. Justifier was furious. She immediately aimed her hands at Cat Noir and fired out a bright red blaze. Cat had no time to react, and so he was hit on the arm. He immediately winced out in pain as he clenched his arm with his other. "Ah!" Ladybug glanced over worriedly at him. She desperately had the urge to drop everything and just make sure Cat was okay, but knew she couldn't afford to do that. After all, superheroes couldn't let their personal feelings affect their game. It was then that Ladybug decided to strike back at Justifier. She was enraged at the pain she'd inflicted upon Cat, so she put everything into this swing of her yo-yo. Ladybug outstretched her yo-yo until it was near enough to Justifier, and she swung so hard, allowing the string to wrap around them and immediately tugged the villain towards her. "Now, who do you think you are to harm my kitty?" Ladybug said bitterly. Yakuma laughed. "Do I see the bug does care for this cat, eh?" Ladybug felt a blush form across her cheeks. No. She wasn't going to let that distract her. Ladybug knocked the Akuma over by kicking her to the side, her yo-yo still tightly wrapped around her. She placed a foot on top and called out, "Lucky charm!" A Ladybug-themed mirror landed into Ladybug's arms shortly after. "A mirror?" she questioned. "What am I supposed to do with this? Fix my hair?" Ladybug rolled her eyes as she pondered on what to do next. Cat Noir appeared beside her, ready to make his next joke. "Or perhaps to fix your jewelry, m'lady," Cat said smugly. Ladybug was about to let out a groan when she realized something. "Wait, hold on, Cat. You may just be onto something." It was then that Ladybug felt a jolt against her leg and she fell backwards. "Ah!" tripping over her yo-yo's wire, releasing Justifier. Justifier smirked. You heroes, so incompetent you can't even defeat me. Well, I suppose I am the brightest thing you've ever faced." Cat groaned at her attempt to make a pun. Only his puns could be funny, and this girl's wasn't even close. Ladybug needed to regain hold of the girl. The Akuma was trying to run when Ladybug threw her mirror at her head. Justifier was smacked on the back of the head and fell over, leaving Cat Noir enough time to race over alongside Ladybug. Cat Noir grabbed hold of both the villain's arms as Ladybug peered at her closely in search of the akumified object. A necklace? Ladybug thought. Cat Noir, her necklace, pass it to me! Ladybug said. Cat grinned before snatching the protesting girl's necklace. As you wish, m'lady. He threw the necklace over to Ladybug, who gratefully caught it and smashed it onto the floor. Out of it came a black butterfly. It was covered in evil from Shadow Moth, so Ladybug captured the Akuma inside her yo-yo and purified it once more, before yelling, "Miraculous Ladybug!" she said as she threw her lucky charm into the sky. Magical ladybugs surrounded in a pink shimmer spread all across Paris, restoring peace yet again. Ladybug ran over to Cat, and as he prepared for their usual pound it, she instead pulled him into a tight hug. Cat was stunned. He'd never seen this side of Ladybug before. Was she worried about him? No, he let those thoughts slide. Ladybug wondered for a moment before speaking. Oh, Cat, I'm sorry you got hurt today. I should have been paying more attention from the start, but I was so distracted and I let you down and I could have ruined everything. Ladybug cried out. Cat frowned. None of this was her fault. She did her best. So why was she so concerned? It's not like he was seriously damaged or anything. It was just a slight burn which hadn't completely healed yet despite Ladybug's powers. Ladybug, no! None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? He said as he pulled away to look at her. And, m'lady, we do need to talk about earlier. Please, tell me what's wrong. Why were you so upset? Cat said as he was filled with anxiety. He was scared for his lady. He didn't want her to be suffering. She didn't deserve that. Not one bit. Ladybug froze as she remembered the promise she'd made before the battle. She didn't know how to tell him. She was scared he would hate her if she mentioned everything. Maybe she should just tell him part of the truth? No. It wasn't fair to leave out so many details. But if she was 100% truthful, would he guess her identity? This thought scared her more than anything. I need a moment. I'm sorry, Cat. I know I've promised. So please, meet me at the Eiffel Tower at 7 o'clock. She said, not quite so sure of herself. Cat smiled at her. Okay, sounds good, m'lady. See you then, he said as he de-transformed back into Adrian before walking off. Oh, Ladybug, what have you gotten yourself into? Marinette flopped onto her bed dramatically as she sighed loudly. She couldn't believe what she'd said, and how could she promise such a thing? She was angry at herself for agreeing to tell Cat Noir. If he knew exactly what was upsetting her, he'd be mad. He'd never be able to forgive her. Tears filled her ocean-like orbs as they stared up at the ceiling. Marinette zoned out as she imagined herself as Ladybug in all of these awful scenarios. No, Cat, wait! I can explain! Ladybug cried, her heart full of sorrow. Cat looked at her. His eyes cold, duller. Even he looked over at Ladybug. I renounce being a hero. I cannot work with you, Marinette. You wronged me too much. Cat scowled angrily. Ladybug shook as she released her de-transformation. Please, Adrian, look at me! She shrieked as she desperately tugged at his hand whilst her body was shaking, full of anxiety. Now stood the de-transformed Adrian aghast. He bitterly slapped her hand away as he rolled his eyes. Besides, you weren't just my friend, but it turns out you're a horrible friend, he remarked as the tears stung his eyes like acid. Marinette couldn't breathe. She was having a panic attack. Her lungs were missing the required oxygen needed for her to function. Tiki turned around to see Marinette, who had frantically rolled off her bed in hopes of finding air. Marinette! Tika called out worriedly as she rushed over to her side.
Oh no, a panic attack!
Shouted Waze as he began to freak out, wondering how to help. A very calm Sass floated over to join them.
What Marinette needs is a bit of soothing,
he said coolly. Tiki spun around frantically.
Yes, Sass, but what?
She shrieked.
She needs light rubbing on her back.
Okay, we'll need about 4 Kwamis to assist us, Sass called out, hoping 3 volunteers would spring into action. Fluff and Long rushed over as Waze joined them. The 4 of them, as well as Tiki, pressed their tiny bodies against Marinette, hoping to bring her some comfort. A moment or 2 later, Marinette had snapped out of it and rose up quite quickly.
Oh, Tiki, I had the worst dream.
Marinette cried softly as more tears rolled down her cheeks. Tiki frowned, wishing she could find the right words to say to comfort her holder. Marinette had an hour or so before she had to meet with Kat. Her panic levels rose once again as she began to sweat all over. Anxiety filled the girl. She was lucky Alia wasn't around to catch her out on her everything is fine charade. Meanwhile, Cat Noir had arrived an hour early to his and Ladybug's meeting place. His heart was soaring. He would finally get to know what was bothering the love of his life. He knew that her being in pain was awful, but if it meant that he could be the one to shelter her, to caress her aching soul, that it would make him happy. All Cat ever wanted was to make her happy. Oh, how he loved her so. Even just thinking about her made his tail sway in excitement. His eyes turned into hearts, and his love grew for her every day. He was still hopeful that she'd love him. Cat danced across the Eiffel Tower, but paused when he noticed that his friend Marinette was stood alone out on her balcony. He couldn't fully see her, but he did wonder if something was wrong. Cat checked the time. He still had 45 minutes until his lady would show up, so perhaps he could go spend some time with his friend. Cat bounced upon roofs, attaching his baton to the side in case of a failed jump. He landed a few centimetres behind Marinette, who jumped as she heard someone landing behind her. Marinette spun around so fast that it almost frightened Cat Noir. Tiki was already out of sight. Marinette's face softened when she saw it was Cat Noir. Wait, Adrian!
Hello, Cat Noir. Waffles! I'm super uncomfortable. She paused embarrassingly. What are you doing here? She finally managed to blurt out after several fails. Cat froze as he noticed Marinette's tear-stained face. Mascara ran down her rosy cheeks, and he also noticed that she looked extremely tired.
Well, I thought I'd come check on you. I noticed that you were out here by yourself,
Cat said softly. Marinette forced a smile.
Well, thanks for dropping by,
she said, almost too coldly. Cat Noir picked up on her tone. He wondered what was wrong with her. Marinette surely wouldn't be going through something, right? Well, she did just break up with Luca a month or so back, but he remembered that she'd also recently confessed her love to a Buttercup, whoever he was. Maybe he did something to her. Cat was angry when the thought occurred. Had this boy rejected her? Has he been cruel? His heart sank when he thought of the poor Marinette expressing her beautiful confession, the most heartfelt thing Cat had ever heard in his life.
Do I need to have a word with said Buttercup?
Cat said, failing to mask the glimpse of anger behind his words. Marinette froze as she remembered what she had said to him. She had confessed to Adrian Agreste, not even knowing that it was him. Holy cow! Her face reddened and she almost looked like she could be a stunt double for a tomato.
No!
Marinette stuttered awkwardly as the red slowly began to fade into a brush of pink. Cat smiled. At least Marinette's Buttercup hadn't done anything wrong. But who was this
Buttercup. He was becoming way too curious. Could it be someone in their class or someone else in the school? He was desperate for answers. Cat Noir disliked secrets. He really wanted to know the boy behind the humorous name Buttercup. He turned and looked at Marinette seriously.
Say, Marinette, who is this Buttercup anyway?
Cat said. Marinette's eyes frantically darted around, looking everywhere but at him. What should she say? Should she tell him? What would he think? What would he say? What would he do if he knew? Marinette was again freaking out. She felt Tiki nudge her inside her jacket, telling her to spit it out. Marinette looked up at Cat Noir as she became mesmerized by his eyes as they reflected in the moonlight, and noticed how his golden hair swayed beautifully in the light wind of the night. She was starting to realize how handsome Cat really was, and that really didn't help the situation. She almost said frantically. Cat's eyes widened with curiosity. He was going to burst if she didn't just spit out the name. She decided she would tell him. After all, he didn't know anything yet, so maybe she could say it without judgment.
Okay, so it's my good friend actually, she said.
Cat glanced at her, peering into her ocean eyes as he tried to understand who exactly that close friend was. He knew there was Alia, Nino, and then Adrian. Him. Maybe it was Nino? No, Marinette wouldn't do that to a friend. Alia? No, Marinette stated Buttercup was a boy. Wait, but no. It couldn't be.
I can tell I'm frustrating you, so I'll just tell you his name. It's Adrian Agrest.
She spat out as she almost couldn't believe her own words. Cat Noir was stunned. His eyes grew wider, his mouth agape, and his cheeks turned a crimson red.
Adrian?
Cat said nervously as he resorted to his unmasked habit of rubbing his neck with his hand. Marinette was scared. Had she done the right thing? She wasn't so sure. Thanks so much for listening to chapters 10 and 11. I decided I'd mix them together because, like, why not, you know? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this part, and also, I apologize, like, if my voice changes accents. I don't know why that happens, but sometimes I sound more American, and then sometimes I sound really English. Like, my accent is English, like, normally, but, like, I don't know why this happens, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Bye.